What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We are here with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice, this time for the single game showdown slate. Monday Night Football, New York Giants, Seattle Seahawks, DraftKings and FanDuel picks and strategies for tonight's game. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. Single game $1 million winner. And yes, we do have another Giants primetime game. And it's not the last. This feels similar to last year when we kept getting all those Broncos games. This year, we are blessed with all the Giants games, but we're here to break it down for you. So, in these videos, if you're new, we talk about the injuries that impact the slate, low risk, high risk lineup construction tips, general strategies to help get you to the top of those contest leaderboards. So, let's jump into it. And let's start on the visiting Seattle side. No major positional injuries that we need to be aware of. And I'm just going to pull up my notes here on my side. The biggest thing we need to be concerned with on Seattle side is their cornerback depth. So they're now missing their top two slot cornerbacks, Kobe Bryant, Artie Burns. Both those guys are injured and out. I believe one is doubtful but not expected to play. So they're going to do what they can and patch it up at the slot cornerback position. Maybe bring a safety down, call up another cornerback from the practice squad. It's rough there. They are, however, getting Tariq Woolen back, standout rookie cornerback. He's going to return for the outside tonight. And they're also getting Jamal Adams back, which may be good in the run game and the blitz game, but in the pass game, maybe that's a benefit for the Giants. That remains to be seen based on Adams' history. But a little bit of give and take, get some guys back, lose one more guy in the slot. Overall, I think if we're targeting the Giants passing game, we have to look towards the slot position, Wan'Dale Robinson, Paris Campbell, if they're going to be down this many slot guys, and even Darren Waller, since he splits out wide so often and in the slot. On the Giants side, obviously, top of the salary table, Saquon Barkley. He is doubtful, not expected to play with his very ordinary. Let us tell you how many times how ordinary it is. Ankle sprain, clearly not ordinary. It's a regular high ankle sprain. He is out once again tonight, second straight missed game. Matt Breida played 41 of 50 snaps in his absence last week. Breida will continue to be the lead back here tonight. Other major injury, they're missing their left tackle, Andrew Thomas, hamstring injury. He is out. An offensive line that is already struggling so far this season, missing their top player, their left tackle. Not great either. Seattle's pass rush not super, doesn't strike super tons of fear in the opponents, but missing your left tackle, it's not great. Now, if you looked at my Twitter thread yesterday, I talked about how Houston was down multiple offensive linemen. Clearly didn't matter to them. CJ Stroud and company still doing their thing. We'll see if the Giants offense, which hasn't inspired much confidence yet, can work around the Andrew Thomas injury. So, that'll do it for injuries. Now let's talk about low risk 50-50s, double ups, head to heads, contests where you just have to beat half the field to double your money. And usually, if you're familiar with these videos, you've read our showdown guide on our site, you know that we either want to try to lock up all the scoring or play the values. We can't really do both tonight. I would say when we talk about low risk contests, both DraftKings and FanDuel, there are probably three levels, right? One is, wow, this is a great low risk slate. There are clear values to play. We can lock up most of the scoring. Let's try to hammer in these high value lineups and hope that our opponents make mistakes. Then we have the middle, which is, I believe is like tonight, where there are some good options. We can build a decent low risk lineup. It's not the best night overall, but it's not like the bottom tier where there are some slates. We've seen it many times in the past. I believe even on Thursday when you watched this video last week, where it's just unplayable. You either have to leave out too many guys, you have to play a high volume receiver over a high volume running back. There are no values, and we just ignore low risk contests on that night. So I think we're in that middle tier here today because you do probably have to leave out one guy, and that guy is probably Kenneth Walker on both sites. He is the highest priced player on DraftKings. 16,200 in the captain spot, 10,800 overall. If we go over to FanDuel, he is 16,000, higher than both quarterbacks, which is kind of crazy. Kenneth Walker obviously had the big game last week. 29.1 FanDuel points. Huge game. Two touchdowns. Two touchdowns the week before. Maybe expecting a little bit of touchdown regression here. But either way, should not be priced as the most expensive player on the board when there are two. One, I would say competent quarterbacks, but one that can rush and one that has proven to be competent in Geno Smith. So Kenneth Walker is going to be a guy that most projection systems think is overvalued here because when he's priced right above the quarterbacks are naturally going to project better. So we have to decide between two of the three, Kenneth Walker, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, for our low-risk lineups. The easy answer is to leave out Kenneth Walker. And Kenneth Walker is still the lead back here, but his snaps has decreased 3 weeks in a row now. Not saying that Zach Charbonnet is going to take over by in the next couple of weeks. But if we're playing 10,800, this guy better be a bell cow running back, and Kenneth Walker is not that right now. So if we start our low risk lineups with both quarterbacks, Geno, Daniel Jones, whoever you choose to pick, Matt Breida, pretty affordable at 6,400, playing 80+% of the snaps as a starting running back in a coin flip game. I believe Seattle's favored by 1.5 here, high total game. Matt Breida should not get game scripted out, and even if he did, was playing on passing downs last week in a blowout against San Francisco. So Breida, game script proof as a $6,400 starting running back. Then we have 6,300 left per player. Could we fit Kenneth Walker if we wanted to? Theoretically, we could. 4,100 per player. That could get us a kicker and a defense. That's very reasonable, and we can definitely do this on FanDuel. And if we go down to the kickers and defenses, yeah, they're in the 4K range, 4K to 4,600. We could easily make this work. So despite Kenneth Walker's outrageous price, we're not going to captain him more than likely on DraftKings, but we can fit him in. This gives us a really high floor lineup on DraftKings. Now, FanDuel, we do definitely have to make that decision because if we try to fit in all three, $67.50 per player. Technically, we can make a lineup, but historically, we know that playing two sub 7K guys in low risk is not the way to go. It is very minus EV. So really here, you're going to leave out Kenneth Walker based on the scoring system, based on the pricing, based on projections. So Jones or Smith, whichever one you prefer in the MVP spot, that leaves us 9,800. Matt Breida still underpriced at 11K here, 9,250. We can play kickers or positional players if we want. Very simple low risk. Again, we have to leave out someone, but still looks like a pretty good low risk night where there are some nights, as we've said in the past, you just cannot play low risk contests. But I think tonight's okay. 50-50 is double ups, head to heads. Now, what most of you are tuning in for, the high risk contest, the largest GPPs on both sites, big satellite tickets, leagues, any type of high risk, high reward contest where we have to beat a lot of people to win a lot of money. So let's talk about those strategies instead. Let's go back over to DraftKings. And I'm just going to pull up my notes on my side here. Let's clear out this lineup. And so if you are familiar with Occupy Fantasy, you've been around for a while, if you've been in the fantasy industry for a while, you probably know this concept of receivers that have been underperforming lately but are due for breakout games at Occupy Fantasy. We call them underperforming wide receivers. Essentially, these are guys that have seen a lot of opportunity in the past 3 weeks. Targets, air yards, target share, red zone, goal line, in the end zone opportunities. But for whatever reason, their expected fantasy points doesn't match their actual fantasy points. They've scored way less than they should have scored based on their volume. And those guys typically have huge weeks in the next week or two. Now, yesterday we had DeAndre Hopkins. He missed out on the 50-yard touchdown. That would have cashed a huge performance for an underperforming wide receiver. T. Higgins got hurt. Not great overall, obviously. But tonight we actually have two on the Giants side, which if you watch the games, shouldn't shock you that they're underperforming. And sometimes you have to give some context here, right? Some guys are playing with good quarterbacks. They're just missing out, whatever it may be. Some guys are playing with bad quarterbacks on bad offenses, or they're bad themselves, and they're underperforming rightfully because they're not in great situations. That may be the case with the Giants tonight, but we still have to point out that both Darren Waller and Darius Slayton, if we can find them here. All right, so Darren Waller is 7K on DraftKings, and Darius Slayton 5,200 on DraftKings. Now, in our underperforming wide receiver formula, it is rare for a tight end to get there. Tight ends almost always outperform their expected fantasy points based on how low their average depth of target is, run after catch, things like that, usage around the goal line. Very tough for them to underperform. Waller is one of them. The other one, shouldn't shock you, is Kyle Pitts. Big surprise, I know. But Slayton, too, has expected to score around 35 fantasy points so far this year, and he's way under 30. So he's actually the most locked-in Giants receiver into his role as well. Now, I said we wanted to target slot receivers in this game, in this matchup with backup cornerbacks in the slot position for Seattle. So obviously that helps out Waller, who's going to move out to the slot, be in line, move out wide. He's going to move around the formation, and just an overall better player, as we saw in the preseason and in years past. But Slayton is a guy that his ownership he's not going to be 10% or anything. He'll be a little popular. But for a guy who most people aren't going to want to play, because we have all these great receivers up here, Slayton is a guy that we can take some shots on, knowing that we have this underperforming wide receiver in our back pocket. That gives us some justification in playing him when generally we wouldn't be that interested. Either way, there's a long way of saying both Waller and Slayton are probably underowned, underpriced based on their expected fantasy performance through 3 weeks. All right, some other ideas here. I think looking at both of these kickers, their names, how both defenses have allowed field goal attempts so far through 3 weeks, we believe, and rightfully so, based on media and projections, that Jason Myers, Graham Gano, both kickers, will be 20% plus owned tonight, will be the highest owned options of the specialty positions, which means we have great leverage in playing Seahawks defense and or Giants defense. Whoops. Let's actually put this in. All right, so kickers, Myers, Gano. We could actually play Giants defense under 15%, Seahawks defense under 15%. We get the Seahawks defense against a backup left tackle and Andrew Thomas against an offense that has just struggled for, I don't know, 10 of the 12 quarters through 3 weeks, if not more. And then we get a Giants defense against Seattle, who's still missing some offensive linemen, Charles Cross and I believe Dwayne Brown, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, two offensive linemen that have been out since week one. They've patched it together a little bit, but still, Geno Smith taking some sacks in the last 3 weeks. Either way, lower owned defenses than kickers. If you play defenses tonight, it's a good option. Higher total game, should see some pass attempts, especially on the Seattle side. So playing defenses over the kickers is great leverage in high-risk contests. Now, if you played last night's game, I personally locked Patrick Mahomes into 100% of my captain slots, 100% of my lineups last night. Figured I could get enough low-owned plays with them. Clearly, that worked out very well for me last night, given how that game turned out. And there are going to be some games like that where there's some captains, some MVPs. We say you either go 0% or 100%. If you go 100%, totally justifiable route. Tonight, I don't think that's the case because we have so many guys that can be the top scorer and or be the optimal captain or the best captain for your small field GPPs. Kenneth Walker, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, Metcalf, Lockett, Waller, maybe Breida on DraftKings. All these guys, would it shock you just for them to score 20 plus points and be the optimal captain? No. So I think for your high risk contests tonight, spread around your captain exposure, mix it up a little bit, build lineups that make sense around that captain, and instead get different in the flex spots because we do have pretty flat captain ownership here. We have 4 different guys expected for 15% or higher captain ownership, a couple guys in that 8 to 12% range. So really flat ownership, unlike we saw last night. So I would say mix up your captain spots. Play some low-owned flex plays. And then there's some interesting cheap guys tonight. Not that we necessarily need it because the slate is pretty soft salary-wise. But I'm just going to talk through a couple of these 200 to 1,000 player guys, maybe sub-kicker defenses, right? So 3,000 or less guys. That makes sense. So if you're looking for low-owned salary-saving options on both sites, realistically, we have to start with the preseason legend, Jake Bobo. Here he is, $200. And if you played preseason DFS, you definitely know the name. Helped a lot of us win a lot of money in preseason DFS. He's playing more than I think most people expected, especially with the drafting of Jackson Smith and Jigba. But double-digit targets, again, 2 weeks in a row. Routes. Double-digit routes, not targets. Double-digit routes 2 weeks in a row. 15-plus routes last week. Caught the end zone touchdown. He might be a little popular just because he did catch that touchdown last week. But being on the field for $200, that many routes, and being an actual good player, DK Metcalf has been on record talking about how he's learning from undrafted free agent Jake Bobo because of his dedication to his craft. So there's not a reason to play Bobo. I'm just saying he's not just some scrub $200 player. He seems to be pretty legit making the team as an undrafted free agent and already getting snaps. And again, you get 15-plus routes as a $200 player. We're going to be interested on DraftKings. Next, we have Daniel Bellinger, who is not good, but also seeing 10-plus routes. Let's type him in instead of me searching for him. He's also $200. Again, likely to score a point or two. On a very tight salary slate with some scrub options, he might be more of an option. Is he going to outscore all the other guys that I'm going to talk about? Probably not. So I don't think he's as interesting this week. But still a guy nonetheless that you can mix into your player pool if he lucks into a touchdown. Next, we have DJ Dallas, who, again, clear number 3 running back on this team, but returns punts and kicks, so maybe pair him up with Seattle's defense for a kick return touchdown. But also he saw his picture just cracks me up every single time with the wide eyes. But he did see a couple early down snaps last week. Got a couple snaps early in a drive. Also saw 2 back-to-back direct Wildcat snaps with him and Charbonnet. So again, a running back who sees the field at $200 on design plays, something that we're going to be interested in as well. Next, we have Colby Parkinson. We do expect Will Dissly back. Other tight end, where's Dissly? Dissly is $400. So Dissly, he has the Q tag, but is expected to be back. He's a guy that we're interested in. Always productive when he's on the field. And then we have Colby Parkinson, $800. All these tight ends are going to mix and match. Parkinson, Dissly, and Noah Fant. But Fant is the most expensive of the group. I would much rather play Parkinson or Disley for the salary savings for slightly less routes and targets. But all three of those tight ends are going to mix and match, and they're great salary saving options on this slate. Next, we have Jalen Hyatt, who, again, because we have so much information and experience playing with Giants showdown slates, even just through 3 weeks, Hyatt was expected to get more run recently, hasn't really panned out. But I still think he's a guy. You're playing multiple lineups, 20-plus lineups, 150 lineups, super large field GPPs. He's a guy that you have to mix in because he is so talented. His routes that he's going to get, his targets are going to be deep downfield if he does play. And Giants still sputtering on offense. Maybe they make a change. Get Hyatt in more involved over Isaiah Hodgins. Very possible. Because I do think their best 3 wide receiver set probably right now as far as talent goes is Slayton, Hyatt, and Wan'Dale Robinson. Maybe the Giants realize that and get him involved. He's the type of guy that we want to play while his salary is low and his ownership is low before the field catches up. Again, not likely to happen tonight, but we want to be ahead in case it does happen. So Hyatt's a guy that we have to be interested in just for his ability as a rookie receiver. Next, we do have the slot wide receiver dilemma for the Giants. Let's scroll down. Let's clear this out. Wan'Dale Robinson, Paris Campbell. Wan'Dale, $3K. Paris Campbell, $2,800. Wan'Dale was $200, I believe, in the optimal lineup on the San Francisco slate, or it was almost in the optimal lineup if Ronnie Bell had not caught that touchdown on one of his 5 routes. Don't get me started. But last week, Wan'Dale Robinson returned off the IR, 10 routes, 5 targets. Target on half his routes. That's insane, by the way. Paris Campbell, 16 routes, 6 targets. So targeted a lot as well. So both guys targeted heavily when they're on the field against a matchup where they're exclusively lining up in the slot versus backup slot cornerbacks, potentially even safeties. So we have to be super interested in these guys. I think if they were cheaper, you could play both. I believe, though, with their price a little bit elevated, you probably have to do a max of one of these guys in your lineup. Either play Robinson or play Campbell or neither, but don't play both together. But I think trending-wise, Robinson has to be expected to get more snaps as he gets healthier, recovers a little bit more, gets more cardio, in shape from injuring his knee last year, and has proven to get heavy targets when he's been on the field. So I think Wan'Dale Robinson's a guy I would play. But Campbell's going to, both these guys, because they're going to cannibalize each other in projections, neither one will get over 20%. They'll both be low owned. You got to play both. I think the favorite, though, is Wan'Dale, expecting to get ramped up more and more as the season progresses. And just an absolutely pristine matchup in the slot against Seattle this week. So both these guys, super interesting. We favor Robinson. Finally, we have to talk about Zach Charbonnet. Drafted a shit ton of Charbonnet in best ball. 3,400. His snaps slowly increasing. Now, I know you may look at the double-digit win last week against Carolina and think that that was a result of the blowout. No, he was getting drives early and often in this game. Got the 2-minute drill before the half. Charbonnet got a little unlucky. Multiple drives. He had the drive, had multiple runs, got subbed out for being tired, or maybe it was on purpose, and they subbed in Kenneth Walker near the goal line. But Charbonnet, multiple red zone touches, design plays, single drives to himself multiple times, 2-minute drill. He's going to score more than 5 points probably tonight, if not soon. And $3,400 a guy. Again, all these guys are going to cannibalize ownership. No one's really going to hone in. The field's not going to hone in on any one guy. But Charbonnet is a guy, especially with Walker being overpriced, that you should probably be overweight on tonight. He's looked good. He's looked good as a rookie. I know a lot of us were high on him in preseason, and those snaps continue to climb, even if it's a 30% share, 40% share. With his talent and how they've been using him, he's a value at $3,400. So to recap, mix up, match, evenly distribute your captain ownership, unless you have a strong stand, obviously, right? I would prefer to get way overweight on the underperforming wide receivers in Slayton and Waller. All of those cheap guys that we talked about, specifically the slot receivers for the Giants, specifically Charbonnet, the Seattle tight ends, just go way overweight on those guys. And I think the field is going to build pretty balanced tonight. Most lineups are going to be 3 Seahawks, 3 Giants, maybe some 4-2s mixed in. No one's really going to build 5-1s. We are playing the drinking game in the Occupy Fantasy Discord every time I say build on slots in a closely contested game. So drink. If you're going to play 5-1 Seattle lineups, 5-1 Giants lineups, no one's going to do that. And if it wins, it's going to be very lightly duplicated. The same goes over on FanDuel as well. And again, just to recap FanDuel, which we didn't really talk about too much for high-risk contests, Daniel Jones, Geno Smith going to get most of the ownership here. But I would still mix in, you're building multiple lineups in large field. You have to mix in Walker, shown to be an explosive playmaker who can score 30 plus FanDuel points. Both receivers, Metcalf and Lockett, and even Waller to an extent, could dominate targets, multiple touchdown games. We've seen it in the past. And at sub 10% MVP, you have to consider Metcalf and Lockett and Waller as well. And if those hit, you still have to play lower owned guys with them. You can't just jam in those guys. We've seen this countless times on FanDuel where a 5% MVP wins, but because no other differentiation is made, it's still a 200-person train. So you still have to get different, but I do like mixing in, same as on DraftKings, mixing all these guys into your MVP slot on FanDuel. So that'll do it for this video. Quick request. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Get notified when we go live, upload any new videos. This is mutually beneficial. One, it helps the channel, helps us grow, allows us, the more subscribers we get, the more videos we can do. And it helps you out because you're notified whenever you go live. We go live, upload these videos. Schedules change day to day, week to week. So just being subscribed is the best way to get notified. Give us a thumbs up. We appreciate that. Lets us know that we should continue to make this content. Let's pump over 200 likes. I hate farming for likes like this, but we got to ask you, just give us 200 likes or more, and we'll keep making these videos. It lets us know that we're doing a great job. Any questions, comment on the video below. I will happily answer them before the slate starts tonight at 8:15 p.m. Eastern. And our Discord server, occupyfantasy.com/discord, is where you can get into in-depth conversations, chat with other members of the community, chat with our staff, sweat the games out with us. As far as content goes, this video is posting obviously early Monday morning, our daily plug, which ranks every player, lineup construction tips for different contest types, more slate notes that I can get into here, all in-depth roadmap for tonight's game. That'll be posted this afternoon. The link is in the description below as well. So, Brian Jester for Occupy Fantasy, thank you for listening, and good luck in tonight's Giants and Seahawks Showdown slate.